The Atlanta Braves take down the New York Mets in Citi Field, and Dylan Lee might just be the new closer. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Tuesday, June 24th. Your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on X, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. Not being covered on today's show, but something I dropped on the newsletter this morning, talking about why the Braves have been so bad on the road. Just significantly worse on the road than they have been at home. Kind of dove into some of the possible reasons why, seeing if we could figure it out. So go check that out again, bravestoday.com. I want to get to what to do about center field, right? And I want to get to tonight's matchup. But before we do that, Braves win game one in a relatively close matchup, 3-2. A game where it felt like Atlanta had a lot of opportunities to score and just didn't convert really any of them, almost any of them. And they were able to hold on and do just enough to win this 3-2. And this is, when I talk about the missed opportunities here, like we genuinely, there was a lot of situations where Atlanta got a guy on third base, scoring position, whatever, and couldn't bring him in. On the night, Atlanta finished, 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. And some of this was the player's own fault, right? Ronald Acuna Jr. singled in the first, immediately stole second steal in the last couple games. He had one last week, but it was more of he was in motion to not get doubled off. This was a legitimate steal, so it feels like Ronald might be back. But he moves to third base on a fly out to center field, and then he strays too far off the bag on a grounder to second and gets tagged out. Second inning, Ozzie gets hit by a pitch, immediately steals second. Sean Murphy singles, which moves him to third. Ozzie comes in on a sac fly, but then Atlanta goes strikeout, inning over. They only get the one run. Third inning, Ronald homers. They get a double and a walk. This is all, there's no outs yet. Wild pitch moves both runners to scoring position, second and third. Olson on third, Ozuna on second. Riley walks to load the bases. This is what you should be doing from the top of your order. And then Ozzie, infield fly, pops out. Sean Murphy sac fly, you get one run in. Michael Harris lines out to first. Actually wasn't a terrible, he swings at the first pitch. It's a sweeper down and in the zone. He laces it, but Alonso gets it, inning over, right? You had bases loaded and no outs, and you got one total run out of it. Just, if Ozzie's fly ball is in the outfield, then maybe you end up being able to get a second one. If anybody gets a base hit, you get a second run in. Kind of frustrating there. And that was the story of the game. It just felt like Atlanta should have been up 7-0 or 8-0, and instead they're up 3-2 in the sixth, or after the sixth. But I do want to talk about that sixth inning, because what we didn't realize at the time is Matt Olson made the game-winning defensive play. So the inning starts off, Schwellenbach gets a single, or gives up a single to Brett Beatty. And then Lindor hits a ground ball to first. Matt Olson makes he snags it right at the bag, steps on the bag, and fires to second right ahead of Brett Beatty for the double play. Beatty had no clue the ball was coming in. Like, he did not know that Olson was about to gun him down. And he still slides and everything goes in, whatever. But the point is, fantastic defensive play. Ended up being big because Brandon Nimmo draws a walk and then Juan Soto homers. So it's a 3-2 game. But that would have been a grand slam. And obviously, Schwellenbach may have pitched Soto differently and whatever, but the point is, that could have been a grand slam. and given the Mets a 4-3 lead. Instead, the Mets are up 3-2. I'm sorry, the Mets are down 3-2 to Atlanta. Atlanta still has the lead. Huge double play from Matt Olson, and one that kind of gets lost. And I want to talk about that Schwellenbach outing a little bit, because a lot of people, I was asked specifically, are you concerned about the lack of strikeouts from Spencer Schwellenbach in this one? He goes 7 innings, 4 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. And he only gets 5 whiffs, 3 on the splitter, 2 on the 4-seam fastball. And I'm not worried at all, because he was like specifically trying to get weak contact. And this is actually a little bit of growth for me. Carlos Mendoza specifically pointed this out too after the game in his post-game media availability. Last week against the Mets, Schwellenbach threw exactly 1 sinker. He threw 20 last night. And they put 7 into play. The average exit velocity on those was just 77 miles an hour. And Schwellenbach talked about this to the media afterwards. Quote, I learned that I don't have to throw the same pitches to the same hitters. I can switch that up and just be unpredictable. This is a thing we've seen Max Fried do, right? Max Fried was a kitchen sink guy. He had a bunch of above average pitches. And sometimes he would go for strikeouts. Sometimes he would go for weak contact. Schwellenbach was at 89 pitches through 7. They could have theoretically sent him back out there and gotten more out of him. Now, the second batter of the 8th inning was Brett Beatty, who already had 2 hits off of him. He was 2 for 2 at that point. So it may have been a batter by batter thing. It could have maybe just been Luis Torrens. They decided instead to get a clean inning for Raisel Iglesias, who did not keep it clean and had to get bailed out by Dylan Lee. We're going to get to that in just a minute. But the win for Atlanta, this is a huge freaking deal. A lot of this credit goes to Schwellenbach. He now has 5 starts against the Mets. Every one of them has been 7 innings. And last year, he had 21 innings against them and 2 runs. He had 4 runs last week. And then he has this 2 runs last night. And he now leads baseball in innings. Nobody has thrown more innings than Spencer Schwellenbach. And his last 9 starts, 2.74 ERA. It feels like Spencer Schwellenbach, now that Chris Sale's down, it feels like Schwellenbach is, I don't know if I'm going to call him the ace of the rotation. You do have Spencer Strider still, but Schwellenbach has the longer track record this season of being phenomenal. And right now, I would argue, is the most reliable starter you have. If you were going to put somebody in the All-Star game, and remember, we can't vote on this, right? Ronald Acuna Jr. is the only Braves player that advanced to the second round of the voting, but we don't vote on pitchers. Fans vote on position players. So go vote for Ronald, by the way. It feels like Schwellenbach is the number 1 choice out of Atlanta's rotation, if you assume they're not going to send an injured Chris Sale to the All-Star game. Obviously, Chris Sale was pitching well enough to go to the All-Star game and would have been one of the guys. I just don't know if they send him now given the injury. But Schwellenbach was fantastic. But Schwellenbach almost didn't get the win last night, because of Raisel Iglesias getting in trouble. Dylan Lee bailed him out, and we'll talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsey Crosby. Let's talk about Dylan Lee, because holy crap what he did last night. Okay, so setting the stage, back it up a little bit where we were here. 8th inning, Raisel Iglesias comes into a clean inning. He gets a ground out of catcher Luis Torrens. Takes 7 pitches to do it, right? A couple pitches are elevated, but they're all off the plate, right? He gets a sinker up and in for a called strike, but for the most part, he's not leaving meatballs. He throws a slider on the outer third, belt high, that Torrens swings over and gets the ground out. Brett Beatty also grounds out. Fantastic, just a bunch of pitches, bottom third of the zone, inside, outside. We started off with a sinker in for a ball, a four-seamer in for a strike, changeup that was down, like in the zone, but that bottom of the zone, fouled off, and then changeup down and away that he hits for a ground ball. And then it gets off the rails a little bit. Francisco Lindor gets a single to right on a changeup. Brandon Nimmo gets a single on a changeup, and it's now runners on the corners, 2 outs. Braves go to Dylan Lee, and this may be the single at-bat of the season. Okay? So Dylan Lee comes in to face Juan Soto, and everybody in the ballpark knows what this plan is. This is Dylan Lee's slider versus Juan Soto. CJ Nikowski says it on the broadcast. Like, everybody knows the goal here is Dylan Lee, throw your slider to get Juan Soto out. So, slider down on the way for a ball. Slider outer third for a called strike. Slider down and away in the dirt for a ball. Slider below the zone he doesn't chase for a ball. You're now down 3-1. First base, like, you do have a base open. So this might have been a little bit of pitching around Juan Soto. Slider perfectly placed, bottom of the zone, swing and a miss. Full count. Slider in the exact same spot, and Soto fouls it off. A little bit concerning. Okay. Can't go back to that. Dylan Lee shakes off Sean Murphy and goes with a fastball on the outer third, 96.7 miles an hour. It's the second hardest pitch of Dylan Lee's career by 0.2 of a mile an hour. Juan Soto has no idea that it's coming. Fouls it, barely fouls it off. And then they go back to the slider below the previous two that he whiffed on one and fouled off on the other. And Sean Murphy does a little bit of a great thing here. Sean Murphy flashes the glove. It's going to be another fastball in the same location, and then drops the glove to the ground, which is just a thing that he does. This is not he's not telling Lee to throw it in the dirt, because it's a full count, right? But he flashes the glove at the exact same spot of the previous pitch, the fastball, and then drops the glove, and then Dylan Lee hits the glove. Murphy never has to pick it back up. Soto, I guess, either thinking now about the fastball or out of the corner of his eye, seeing the flash of the glove up, swings over the slider for the strikeout. Biggest strikeout of the year, I'd argue, for the Braves. And Dylan Lee turns around, goes into the ninth, and just gets out of it. He gets a strikeout of Pete Alonso on a changeup. It's like he gets Alonso 4 strikes, called strike, couple foul balls, a ball on a slider down, and then tricks him with a changeup away. Jeff McNeil grounds out on a first pitch slider, and then Tyrone Taylor again on the changeup. He breaks out the changeup in the 9th inning. It's Dylan Lee's second career save. It's Atlanta's first save since May 16th. 31 game gap. The longest stretch without a save in franchise history. Just absolutely wild here. So Dylan Lee, like right now, it feels like Iglesias may eventually get that job back, but it feels like it's Dylan Lee's job to lose right now. He is the closer. And it's well-deserved. Dylan Lee's quietly been one of the better relievers in baseball for a couple seasons, and has never really gotten the opportunities. First 2 career saves came this year. He had a 2.11 ERA in 52 games last year. Now he has a 1.77 this year in 36 games. And that slider is fantastic. What's really unique about Dylan Lee's slider that I talk a lot about the cutter being a bridge pitch. And this is still a slider, but it feels like a lot of the movement characteristics on this are cutter-esque, right? It moves, it doesn't drop as much as a standard slider does. It doesn't have as much horizontal movement as a standard slider does. It's not fully in cutter territory, but it does feel like it is a bit of cutter-esque. And so he's able to do different things with it. He can back off a little bit on it to make it look like a traditional slider, or he can wind it up and fire it in there like it is a cutter. He had some last night that were 89 miles an hour. He had some last night that were like 85, 86. He has the ability to take a little bit off. So it's one pitch, but it's almost like it's two pitches, right? He can throw it as an 85, 86 mile an hour slider, or he can throw it as an 88, 89 mile an hour cutter, really. Two groups of pitches here. The four-seam fastball doesn't grade out super well on StatCast. He's allowed a 361 batting average against it, although the expected's 305. A little bit of bad luck there, right? But the movement profile of it gets 19.3 inches of induced vertical break. League average is 16. So it's got above average velocity for a lefty, right? Again, lefties on average don't quite throw as hard as the righties. So he averages 94 on it. Lefty fastballs average 93, but again, he can run it up to 96 and change, like he did last night. And then he's got that changeup that he uses about 10% of the time. And you saw last night how effective it is at the very end of an at-bat. I think I talked about this the other day. It's weird to have this many lefties in your pen and not have one of them be a closer. I think if you have Dylan Lee as your closer, you use him as the closer no matter what, and then you have three lefties that you can move around or use for different situations, right? You can say, hey, we have lefties available, and then Dylan Lee's the closer no matter what. You have other high leverage guys. I still think the Braves need to go out and get somebody. I still think my suggestion of going to the Pirates and getting Andrew Heaney and David Bednar makes a ton of sense. But either way, it just feels like Dylan Lee, at least for right now, is going to be your guy. And it's deserved. He should be your guy because he's earned it, and every time he's been out there, he's been clutch. A guy who has been clutch at times, but has not been good overall at the plate is Michael Harris. Let's talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. We're going to bring back an old chestnut here. Two things can be true at once. Michael Harris has been one of Atlanta's most clutch performers with runners in scoring position. Michael Harris has also not been good at the plate this year. So as of Tuesday morning, Michael Harris leads the Braves on RBI with runners in scoring position. He has 37. Matt Olson has 31. Marcell Ozuna has 29. Riley has 26. So he not only leads, he leads by a good amount. Like, it's really not that close. In case you were curious, by the way, batting average-wise in that situation, Austin Riley's batting .325 with runners in scoring position. Drake Baldwin's at .289, so is Eli White. Matt Olson's at .284. Ozzy's at .273. Sean Murphy's at .273. Harris is at .247. So a lot of these guys are actually hitting pretty decently with runners in scoring position. You're just not always seeing, one, you're not seeing a ton of home runs. Nobody has more than two. And you're not seeing a ton of RBI. But there are actually a lot of these guys have pretty good stats with runners in scoring position. I do feel like also part of this is it does come and go in waves. And they'll be good for a while, then they'll be atrocious for a while, and it all bounces out. But outside of that situation, Michael Harris has been dreadful. And I think we know that. Batting .221 with a .245 on base and a .333 slug. It is not just bad, it's almost embarrassingly bad. I'm trying to look at the last time he drew a walk, and I'm genuinely struggling. I think it was May 18th at Boston. Yeah, it was May 18th at Boston. He walked twice in that game. It has been over a calendar month since Michael Harris drew a walk. And it's getting to the point where you're starting to wonder, does he go down to AAA for a while to fix it, to figure it out? Atlanta has a couple options. If he does, I do think that they may wait for Jurickson Profar to come back on July 2nd, right? It may be a situation where rather than, say, send him down this weekend or something, that means you have to play Verdugo and White every day. Eli White would step into center field. You do have to play White every day. I think that might be something where his runway extends all the way to when Profar comes back. And if he hasn't shown signs of fixing it by the time Jurickson Profar comes back, the immediate solution is you send down Michael Harris, Profar replaces him on the roster, and then Eli White becomes an everyday player in center field, Profar's in left, and you have Verdugo and Stuart Fairchild on your bench. Because they haven't really, since Stuart Fairchild came back, they haven't shown the willingness to play him that much. He is not getting starts like he was before the injury. Yeah, I even thought he was going to when he first came back, and he didn't. But Eli White got a start last night, and he's been getting a couple starts here and there. It feels like they may want to go back to him over Verdugo and let White play every day. And some of the other options, you do have Carlos Rodriguez in AAA. Now, he does not have any power to speak of, right? When you look at what he's done this year in AAA, he's batting .303 with a .362 on base and a .356 slug. He has 20 walks and 27 strikeouts in 57 games. He also only has 2 home runs and 6 extra base hits in 57 games. He is a singles merchant, but it's a situation where at this point, a guy who can put the ball in play and can play an okay center field. Here's the thing about replacing Michael Harris. No matter who you use, Eli White, Carlos Rodriguez, anybody, it's going to be a downgrade defensively. Michael Harris is legitimately one of the best defensive center fielders in baseball. He is 94th percentile at +6 run value on defense, at a position where it is very hard to rack up that value. And if you look at all center fielders in baseball from a run value perspective, he's in the top 7, right? He's at +6. Ahead of him are not very many guys. Ceddanne Rafaela, Pete Crow Armstrong, Julio Rodriguez. Denzel Clark of the A's has been just nuts. He has like 200 innings, and he's already in the top 4. It's bonkers. He's been so good defensively and so bad offensively. It's another Michael Harris. He's been amazing with the glove, terrible at the plate. He's been even worse than Michael has. But you're in a situation of, okay, what do you do now? I tend to think Eli White can play well enough in center field where you don't have a huge drop-off from Michael Harris. You look at his StatCast card, and granted, it's a lot of corner outfield this year, but when you look at his StatCast card, everything's pretty red when it comes to fielding and running. Sprint speed at 98th percentile, 29.9 feet per second. Arm strength, 82nd percentile, 89.4 miles an hour. Arm value, 72nd percentile, +1. Range, so, outs above average, +1. Fielding run value, +2. 73rd percentile. Now, is he going to be a step down from Michael Harris? Yes. Everybody will be a step down from Michael Harris. He is the best defensive center fielder in the organization at any single level. But Michael Harris, his bat, he's legitimately first percentile in baseball on run value. -20 batting run value. even like the only area with which he is even remotely near average on StatCast when it comes to offense. His bat speed is 72nd percentile. That's picked up recently. He's been swinging harder recently as he undid some of the Tim Hyer stuff. His expected batting average is actually not terrible. It's 264. The actual is 221. His expected slug is 400. The expected's 333. And then his whiff and strikeout rates are both in the 50 whatever percentiles, 55 percentile for whiff at 23.6%, 59th percentile on strikeouts with 20.1%. So he's not striking out a ton, excessively striking out. The problem is he also walks at a third percentile rate of 3.2%. So the difference between walks and strikeouts is enormous. And that's what a lot of people look at, is strikeout to walk rate. And he's at 20.1% strikeout, but only 3.2% walk rate. Whereas you have guys on this team who are walking more than 10% of the time. Again, he hasn't walked since they were in Boston. That's absurd. So I'm trying to feel like the options here are, if you send him down now, Eli White's probably taken over in center field. They call up Carlos Rodriguez, but it feels like what's more likely here is when Jurickson Profar comes back, what you do is either Profar's your everyday starter in left, Eli White's in center, and Harris goes down, or Profar's your starter in left, some combination of Eli White and Carlos Rodriguez are your starters in center, and both Harris go down and you get rid of Verdugo or Fairchild, one of those two. You may dump Verdugo, you may dump Fairchild. Because here's the thing. If Alex Verdugo isn't starting, he doesn't do anything for you off the bench other than be a veteran for a pinch hit. That's it. He doesn't give you defense. He doesn't give you speed. And Atlanta is so attached to roles on their bench. He's like Orlando Arcia. Arcia wasn't a good enough hitter to get pinch hit opportunities. He wasn't fast enough to get pinch running opportunities. He got exactly one, and I think that was for an injured Marcell Ozuna. He wasn't good enough defensively to sub in for anybody. And so Orlando Arcia was dead weight, and they ended up DFAing him. I feel like Verdugo's headed to that route. If Profar's starting in left every day, and Harris or White or Rodriguez or somebody's in center field, what role does Alex Verdugo have other than being a pinch hitter off the bench? And honestly, if Sean Murphy's the starter in that game, I'd rather pinch hit Drake Baldwin than pinch hit Alex Verdugo. The speed's close to the same, and I trust Baldwin a lot more than I trust Verdugo. I know I've talked about it a few times now, but it feels like Alex Verdugo should be gone. I don't understand why he would still be here if Profar's the everyday player when he comes back, which I expect he will be, just given how bad left field's been for Atlanta, really all season. Let me know what you think. I want to hear from you. I'm on social media at Crosby Baseball. We got tons of other ways to reach us. You know, the show's on X, Braves_today. We have an Instagram, Facebook, all that. I want to hear from you. Let me know what you think about what the Braves should do in center field. And I think I'm probably going to write about this today for tomorrow's newsletter as well. And speaking of the newsletter that I didn't talk about today, but you can go read at bravestoday.com, was why are the Braves so bad on the road? It's not really a satisfying answer, but we dive into all the different factors that could account for the Braves being worse on the road. Do me a favor, if you're listening on audio, leave a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we drop the next episode, as well as when we go live on Friday for our Friday live show. I've really been enjoying those. They've been running a little bit long, 45, 50 minutes. I think I broke 50 minutes in the last one, but tons of fun, lots of questions and engagement from everybody in there, so come back for that. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.